Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 13th It's About Time reading series, writers reading series. I am delighted to have you all here tonight, sheltering from the beautiful summer evening. Don't worry, we'll be out before the sun sets, at least in this part of the world. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from Sharon Carter, from Steve Sibra, from Susan Gardner, and we have at least one open mic person already. We had scheduled Peter Mountford for the Writer's Craft. I haven't heard from him yet. There is sometimes a misunderstanding about what time this event starts. I guess in the non-library world, 7 p.m. is more of a writerly time. So sometimes people still turn up. So I'll be keeping an eye out. But as if we were in person, whoever is here are the most important people in the room, even if it's a Zoom room. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Our first reader is going to be Sharon Carter. Sharon M. Carter is a poet and visual artist. Originally from a Lancashire seaside town, she earned a medical degree from Cambridge University, working in both British and American nonprofit systems. She was fortunate to be supported by Hedgebrook and the Jack Straw Writers Program early in her writing career. Her work has been published in many literary magazines, anthologies, and online, including Terra Nova, Pontoon, Ars Medica, the American Lung Association, and Raven Chronicles. Take a Stand, Art Against Hate, and the anthology. Her book, Quiver, was published recently by Tabo Bach. I'm trying to say Welsh for teapot. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you, Peggy. I'm really happy to be here. And thank you to my friends who are showing up. The first poem, I'm going to read some poems from my book, Quiver, and then a couple of newer poems if there's time. And the first poem is about the Paleolithic caves in northern Spain, which I visited about 20 years ago. The first poem is called El Pindal Cave, Asturias. Sun delivers opals to the morning sky. Cicadas, high up in eucalyptus, drum their release from damp earth and root sap. Our trail crunches from the ghostly litter of their discarded shells, winds along cliffs to caves, where a screen of vines defines the boundary between light and dark. A Cerberic bulldog dozes in the heat, head slumped on a platter of paws. His eyelids shutter as we approach. Tourists emerge into daylight, resurrected from the underworld, no longer silent as shed skin, unable to speak their names. In the second poem, I worked in a clinic in the South Wales coal mining areas in the 1970s. It was a very deprived area, but had once been really beautiful. Now covered in slag heaps, which they're trying to reclaim. Incidentally, Margaret Thatcher shut them down in 1984, and they've never recovered. And the poem is called The Doctor in Coal Country. Slag heaps backdrop our clinic, hunched labor from another history. We live in coal country, poverty, pit deaths, black lung. The boy appears after hours, an 8-year-old sapling, swollen thumb. A needle-sized sliver spears his nail into the pulp. A pus bead gleams at entry. By now, all sobbing has passed, his digit beyond tweezers and patience. A red line reaches for his armpit, for his life. His flushed face turns toward me, fever, not summer heat. He turns, trusting. I gave him a bunch of antibiotics, and he was all right. So the next poem is about my hometown, I was really surprised recently to see a whole series about it on Amazon Prime called The Bay. And there's a police station featured in the series, which was built upon my demolished childhood home, which I found a little sad because it was a 17th century farmhouse, and there's a whole story about that. And the other comment is that Morecambe Bay has the largest intertidal flats in the UK. It's an enormous bay, but the poem is about something else. The poem is called Non-Native. Earthworms digest my garden, detritus. The same species dug in my childhood yard for bait. I learned to hook those pale tremblers myself, wait for tugs on my handheld line. We caught eels from the jetty on their journey to mate in Bermuda's Sargasso Sea. I remember the windlash off Morecambe Bay, fish heads, blood. Walking home, the catch dangled like Medusa's scalp from Dad's calloused hand. Caught in the same bay, 23 illegal Chinese cockle pickers were swallowed by incoming tides, paying off their debts. It was a terrible tragedy. As a local, we all knew about the treacherous tides. But if you were ferried up from London, you wouldn't know that. And I wrote a companion poem to that piece called The Earthworms Speak. And the earthworms, our Latin name is Alolobophora chlorotica. Alolobophora. Dragged from one land to another, we burrowed in, swallowed their foreign ways. Our skin repelled them. What difference could that make? Misery enough to drive us west across the plains. Here we return to our industrious ways. These neighbors, more accepting, but still jealous of our gorgeous name. And if I can find it, I'd like to read a poem about a hike. I used to hike a lot, but I don't anymore because I bashed up my knees. This particular hike, we set off rather late, and it was unclear if we were going to summit Asgard Pass before it went dark. And so I wrote this poem. There were two of us, and the poem is in couplets. And it's called Asgard Pass for VB. Stars puncture an indigo night. Our footsteps clatter in couplets over granite boulders. Glittering hornblende fused with quartz. At the pass, our plumed breath rises into icescape. The moon, a milky white cataract in sky's retina. My axe fractures a frozen lake. Cracks radiate, probe the black veneer like the blight on your mammogram. The shock of cold water. I carve a smooth, clean circle. Fill steel pans. We pitch tent, unfurl sleeping bags. Our spines press to the earth as we pivot toward morning. And the last poem from this book, Fruit. I wrote this poem at Centrum. I took a class with, I can't remember who I took it with, but it was really a fun class, and we all got a pomegranate. So this is what I wrote. It's a little medical. It's called Fruit. When I split a pomegranate that summer's day, I thought, dessert, Persephone, then ovarian tumor. I saw a malignant mass whose hunger could burn through a young woman's body, spongy red flesh left to decay on its fallopian tube, identical cells like pomegranate seeds, repeating. So I'm just going to read a couple of new works. I've been writing about the universe lately, and first poem I wrote about some time when I was fortunate, or some might say unfortunate, because I didn't have any money, to be hitchhiking around Europe in the 1960s. This is a poem about one of those adventures, and it's called Door to Another Universe. Barely a moon when the truck pulled into Madrid. I gambled on safety. The world seemed mine back then. Descended the bar's damp steps, their audience of broken bottles, butt ends. Doors open to smoke, men, a flamenco guitar. The dancer, dressed as a crimson sunset, strutted on a pocket-side stage, her leather heels drumming a tachycardia. When rhythmic clapping began, she arched her body, snapped open castanets. A dueling conversation overlaid by insistent feet. Performers halted on the same pulse. She flipped back her hair, creating her own dark galaxy, and laughed. I never forgot that. And the last poem, thank you, is called Dark Universe. I thought it might be the end of a chapbook. I'm not sure yet, though. Dark Universe. Far below the sparkle and tang of ocean surf, below whales singing from their birthing basins, the hermit crab drags its home along a sandy beach. Deeper still, where no light exists among fissures and undulating currents, comic book fish and Halloween maraes flash their existence, one to another in phosphorescent code. Creatures created over millennia remind us, if our clouds darken, ash falls, whatever becomes of us, life 3 miles down may continue untroubled in its own a black universe on its own time. Thank you very much.
I have to admit that I was quite relieved when you went to exploring the universe, because you were awake too close to the bone for me on the, the blight on your mammogram and the ovarian tumor. It's going to be hard to look at a pomegranate again.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but you did it beautifully. Thank you so much. I love your takes on the universe, and hope you look forward to having you back, or even read that other poem when you find it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Bob, would you like to pop in for open mic? Bob Reeves.
Hello. This is probably Steve Sibra's favorite thing that I've written, so I'll read this for him. A graduated system. Mill Boxcomb, the potato engineer, had 3 children with human-sized bodies, but heads the size of ant heads. They weren't any less intelligent than the average human, or more than the average ant. Their names were Mucky, Susie, and Anthead Boxcomb. Confusingly, Anthead wasn't the first one named. Mill Boxcomb always wore a mask that looked exactly like his face. He always said he looked forward to the day when he trusted someone enough to take off the mask and show them who he really was. That day never came, he said, because he wasn't sure he could trust that the person afterwards would be able to tell when he was wearing the mask and when he wasn't. Sometimes Mill couldn't tell either. He had been the first engineer, and so far was the last, to turn potatoes into sports utility vehicles. This happened a few weeks after the potatoes had turned into $10 bills and then begun to rot. The $10 bills only maintained their shape when they were used to purchase the sports utility vehicles. When you tried to buy anything else with them, they turned not into sports utility vehicles, but into faraway countries. And the faraway countries could only be reached by the SUVs, which had originally been $10 bills. This is what engineers refer to as a graduated system, but not in anyone's hearing. The key mystery of the 21st century was why so many piles of money, sports utility vehicles, and faraway countries smelled like potatoes. Mill Boxcomb could have explained it to them, but preferred to play catch with Mucky, Susie, and Aunt Head. They used potatoes. Mucky asked his father, wasn't it boring to be dependent on potatoes at home as well as work? Mill answered that the home potatoes hadn't been turned into anything, and that made home feel fresh and pure, like nature untainted by man. Susie pointed out that the home potatoes had been turned into baseballs, at which point Mill retreated into the house for the rest of his life and never saw the world again. Aunt Head stayed out of the discussion, but was a little miffed that now no one would appreciate his marvelous creation, the potato glove.
Thank you. I love how we develop some regular open mic readers. And I remind others who are joining us that you are welcome to let me know if you're interested in open mic tonight. I did just hear from Peter Mountford, who had been planning to do the writer's craft. And it turned out that he's had COVID and thought it went away. Then it came back and he's just been sleeping. So I don't call this It's About Time for no reason. We'll have to schedule him for another time. So wish him well in his recovery. For now, we're going to hear from Steve, who's conveniently unmuted already for his introduction. Steve grew up in north central Montana near the tiny town of Big Sandy. His family were farmers. He was an only child and spent much of his early time alone with his imagination, which I presume is some sort of way to get us ready for what he'll be reading. In 1980, he graduated from the University of Montana with a degree in history. His career dealing in vintage comic books spanned nearly 4 decades. As a writer, his first publication came during his high school years. Since 1990, his poetry and short fiction have appeared in dozens of literary journals, numerous countries, and in at least 3 languages. His first full-length book of poetry, titled Shoes for Baby, was published in 2022 by Swallow Publishing. He's currently at work on his second book, a hybrid of poetry and prose. It is titled Lessons in Dirt and focuses on his childhood and teen years involved with farming in Montana. He still spends time in Montana, but his permanent residence is in North Seattle with his wife of 29 years, Stacy. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you all very much. That about covers it for me. I don't think there's anything more good that can be said about me than what Peggy said. So I'm just going to go ahead from that. I'm going to read the first 2 poems I'm going to read are from the book, and I should have a copy of the book here to hold up, but I guess that's happening in an alternate universe because I don't seem to have one. The name of it is Shoes for Baby, and you can get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or eBay, or probably just go look around on a street corner and there'll be one laying around. So if you like what I write, please seek it out. Thank you. The first 2 poems here are from the book. The rest are newer stuff. And I want to dedicate this reading to Frank. First poem is The Ice Cream Dreaming of Weasel Monahan. Some mornings he wakes up and he's just not there. His father listens to country music and loves the color orange. He beats Weasel's mother with such a passion, she cannot leave the house for days because of the signs. She says she knows it's wrong, but it makes him calm. Weasel dreams his father is not real, but is a zombie or a mummy or a cartoon. His father takes him to high school football games, swears at referees and coaches, hopes Weasel will someday play. Weasel dreams, even when awake, of ice cream slides on a playground buried in a pit far below his father's house, where monsters sit and smoke and watch their children running in the dark, laughing, eating each other's faces. This next poem is also from the book. It's called I Forgot You. I forgot your existence. I was in the basement of my soul, working with my hands, holding things of small and large consequence, unmindful of things too large or too small to fit in those hands. You are too large to fit in my hands, and too small to fit in them as well. You are buried so deep in an ocean of emotion, I cannot reach down, pull you back to surface. You are a pair of wings, so tiny, so distant into the realm of stars. Gray clouds, stifled by tears, weave beneath your bare feet. You are naked to me always, invisible behind curtains made of some other season on some other world. I forget you, as if you were my breath moving in and out, as if you were a gentle heartbeat. I forget you, as life and death forget time, as the sun forgets its own shine. The best thing about my book actually is the introduction, which was written by Erica Brummett, by the way. So if you just want to check it out of the library and read that, you probably get your money's worth. So this is all new stuff. This is called Skies Are Blue. I put paper clips on my memories to hold you in a place in time, to stop you from slipping away, to keep you riding high somewhere over the rainbow. Coal black cat on the sidewalk, so dark he is invisible, like a night of loving in your arms, or within my mind, whichever is the real, whichever is the now or the then, somewhere over the rainbow, where old dreams and new are still. Why, oh why can't I? I really like this poem. I don't know where it came from. Children, we did it all, lost in thought, lost in the dreams of birds, soaring. When the day comes, the earth knows all the birds will go blind. In time, children will rise from the foam, broken eyes through pristine windows, glass stained red from blood, collisions when the sky meets the finite, tears fall to the concrete, never to remember the eyes which gave them birth. How primal, how excited by experience, how fat the calf just slaughtered. We are children. Adults exist only in reflection, tear stains on broken glass. I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning from a dream, and it compelled me to get up and write this poem almost exactly as it is now. It took me about an hour and a half. It's called A Few Simple Lines. Tonight in a dream, I read a few simple lines of poetry. I rose up, I wept, I felt the world break itself away. My eyes, a gust of heat and wind hit my face. I braced myself, felt my lips singe, blister, crack, peel from their rightful place. My body, long since bent, broken, now completed its task, folded itself in half, heart swollen, pinched into an epitaph. Blocks away, I could hear skulls cracking as pressure rose, impounded my brain, blood came from my nose. My teeth lie loosened inside my mouth, my world. I could not find my shoes. Confused, my tongue swollen. I could not speak or breathe. All words small and stolen. Eyes nearing blindness, fear driving me on. I reached out, touched my instrument of choice. Desperate, I laid down some words of my own, a few simple lines of poetry. Of a sudden, I felt the air rush back into my lungs. I felt freedom release its colors back into my mind. I opened my shattered mouth, stuck out charred remains of a tongue, closed my eyes, felt a drop of purest rain. My words, so simple and plain, they restored me. They ended the blend of pain and terror about the future of love in my heart. Torture of doubt rising like a torrent of tears, shaken and drained, I remembered you. Realized that you were out there still, your mind humming, your heart pumping, your lips whispering a few simple lines of poetry, so pure, so yours, so mine, a few powerful words arranged into a few simple lines. This poem was inspired by a drawing that never existed, but was suggested to me by an artist that they were thinking of doing. It's called Poem About Rain. If wanting to write about rain, the key is to write about anything but. Rain is too much metaphor, sadness falling with iridescent drops. Light refracts, changes hue, changes you. Built within the word, the act of falling itself, descent, drops. The art of falling in love. Seldom comes sorrow without a shield of grace. Perhaps the only exception, conceptions of betrayal on the tail end, the face of falling in love. Picture a naked daughter of innocence seated in a cold stream of emotion, nothing protecting her beyond an umbrella, swats away a bit of what drips from above. Droplets twinkle like promises broken, tiny spears of pain, nothing to be named, just words of some fool fumbling, tumbling through love. Seems this poem not about rain after all. Each time a cloud cries, cleans earth and sky, everything born anew, like tears of joy washing bits of dust from the eye. Rain cannot sustain the dreams of a fool. Love carries a burden, a bag laden with the heaviest stones. The fool thinks they are anchors holding him fast, but anchors are drags. And when slippery with tears become too hard to grip, they will slip and fall, fairly rip tender fabric. Umbrellas of understanding so fragile cannot endure the downpour. The key? To write nothing. Cries for love in the rain. Too many stones bind the living. Too much metaphor. This is the most recent poem I've written of this batch, and just a couple more after this. I'm really glad Bob Reeves brought up Anthead, because I do love that story. This is called In and of the Ants. Tiny ants have built their hills on the inner side of me. In tiny ways, a million changes made. I can feel, but cannot see. Things are moving inside my brain. Winds are blowing little hurricanes, washing me and tossing me. It feels like nothing and everything. It cascades like drifts of snow. It pours over me like sheets of rain. They carry away my feelings, replace them with eggs and stones. I fear they try to save me. Pray they sit back and let me go. Housewife of the woodpile. She crawls in with winter, oak rigid alabaster queen, burns like Aubrey Finch. Come summer she warms, drives school bus for the ministry, backwards baseball cap. For her it is wartime, drama swirls. She is everywhere, dripping desire to step in, lend an honest hand, fill the void when a husband smelling of musk shirks. In her spotted apron, she pops corn. Locker room jockeys know her as Spider Legs. Across her hips swims midnight romance. Men wax her down, return her to the wood. As snow drifts sullen, her bark so quiet it hurts. Thank you all very much for listening to this. This is my final poem. It's called Color of Sky. All my colors are whorls of fall, browns, tans, yellow, and gold. Warmest of all is the glow of copper. How it wraps around my stem, caresses every thought. I never understood the sky with its tense majesty of blue, so proud of its own brilliance, no thoughts of sorrow or uncertainty. Still the sovereignty of a color so misbegotten to my soul. It weighs heavy on the sands of mind, my eyes soaked in sacred blue until optic nerves snap. My spirit is blind, but not so barren. I feel it now more than see it. The color of hope, smooth, simple, today, tomorrow. I skate on your skin into mystery, so rich and creamy. You bleed love. When I touch the hub of your wheel, when the rust, the dust clears, when the wind shears all restraints, when the tingle climbs your spine, I will shout. You will sing as all else fades, our shadows like whispers, like prayers to wing. Thank you all so very much for listening to my work.
Thank you, Steve. Your work is, I just feel it expanding and evolving. It was beautiful. Or maybe it's just been too long since we got to hear you as a featured reader and for you to read your own work, which really does it justice. I love that as the sun forgets its own shine. And then there's humor, too much metaphor. Thank you. We'll
I
look
try to
forward.
mix it up, and I
You do.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, no, those last ones are just absolutely exquisite. Thank you. All right, well, let's give a very warm welcome to our brave, not that he needs to be brave, first time attendee and open mic reader, Giovanni.
Hi, everyone. So I'm new, obviously, and I was just looking for a place to share because I've been writing a lot of stuff and I was just looking for a place to share. I was just at the Hugo House one yesterday, so I thought I'd try this one too. How many, like, how long do I go for?
3 minutes for open mic.
That's perfect. I only really want to share one.
Okay.
It's one that a lot of people seem to like, so figured I'd share that. It's called Soul to Share, and it's about like kind of just the feeling of just wanting to express yourself, like that overwhelming, feeling of wanting to do that. So here we go. I spent my life bidding for attention towards the auctioneer, waving my sign, begging for a chance to show my soul to share. Deaf ears, blind eyes, apathy, people without a care. Every turn there's an obstacle hiding a soul to share. It's not the spotlight I'm afraid of or the vengeful glare. I'll take any glance thrown my way to show my soul to share. I know the privilege I have, and I know that life's not fair, but I'd give it all up in a heartbeat for you to see my soul to share. My body grays, my skin decays, I've lost my luscious hair. But in all that time, could I ever find someone looking for a soul to share? Life is long, far too long, piling on the burdens we bear. But I'll keep going, and you should too. We all have a soul to share.
Thank you. I'm glad you found out about us.
Yeah.
More and more reading series that have been in existence are coming back alive. I know that our founder, Esther, because this is about 33 years old, went to a Wedgwood one recently and said it was great to see some new and long familiar faces. So the venues, they are returning.
That's cool. Also, I just wanted to say, Steve, your poems are very good. They, as somebody else who is an only child and I was surrounded by my imagination, it's a lot of it spoke to me very much, especially what was it called? I Forgot You, and a few simple lines. Those are probably my favorite. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for saying that. And your work is good. I'm really glad you stood up and read it.
Thank
you ain't
you.
so bad, man. Stick it out. You're doing good.
I'm still trying. I'm putting stuff on Medium and seeing how that goes, you know, just a place to write stuff. I'm working on some short stories as well, but mostly it's poetry. Yeah. Thank you though, Steve. Appreciate that.
You've come to the city of literature. So there you go. All right. Our next reader is Susan Gardner. Susan, if you want to say hello.
Hello. I'm
There
sure
you go.
hear me now, right?
Ah, perfect. Okay. So Susan is a poet and visual artist. She's the author of 7 books and has appeared in numerous anthologies. She delivered the Cam Memorial Lecture at the New York Public Library, where she was honored to be granted a year in the Allen Room. She's presented extensive lectures and readings, including at the Freer Gallery of the Smithsonian Institution, the Library of Congress, and the Folger Library. She's been invited to residencies at the American Academy in Rome and many others in interesting places, and her art has been exhibited internationally in museums and galleries. She is a recent transplant to the Pacific Northwest and the founding editor of Red Mountain Press. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you very much, Peggy. And hi. And I'm brand new here, only not even a year. And I'm so happy to see a few people that I already know. Thank you for coming. This is Red Mountain's publication. Was published about less than 2 weeks ago. The last line in this book is eyes open to the world as it may be. And that's what these poems are about. Night work. In the night silence, the house hums darkly. Wood creaks with memory of its tree life. Refrigerator defrosts itself around ice cream. The small, invisible creatures scratch at the screen, curl against the still warm wall. Soft snores, shifting sheets, unseen stars, everyone sleeps in the dark. Over the page, one bulb burns, word after word, one sheet after another. Aleida Fopo was born in Barcelona. She was a poet, a feminist, and a teacher in Mexico. At this time when poets and their work are so endangered, this poem is dedicated to her. Locked Gate. On December 19th, 1980, Aleida Fopa went to buy flowers. She disappeared. 66 years old, in a cellar, in a bloody cell in Guatemala, by the hands of thugs, or worse. I walk by Aleida's sweet house in Tepoztlan, refuge from city noise and endless sorrow. Mario, husband of decades, killed in Guatemala by a car. 2 sons, Mario and Juan Pablo, Guatemalan guerrillas, dead. Sylvia, beloved hija, hiding in Cuba. Laura and Julio, safe in an unquiet life in Mexico. Alaida's house is closed. White cotton curtains cross the fastened windows, embroidered flowers near the sills. Past the locked iron gate, leaves blow in corners of the patio, brown on the stones, undisturbed. Now and then, someone thinking of Alaida tosses a message through the patterned bars, also undisturbed. 30 years ago, I write a poem, lifted to the wind through the barred gate. Dust now. Alaida loved the light of Italian art and the music of, Italian words. Teacher, translator, scholar, for almost half a century, she put words on paper. Justice, equality, honor, hope. No body, no grave, not a strand of hair. Only paper reminds us of her beauty and her courage. But a century after she was born, her words, written down, are read. Remembered like Joe Hill, she's alive as you or me. For the last 7 or 8 years, we have spent the winter in Sarasota, living next to the Hudson Bayou. At Hudson Bayou, on the edge of the bayou, I wait. Now and then, sounds break the silence. Egrets and pelicans dive through air. Water laps at mangrove roots. Mullets leap, splash wet silver shine. Families of shy manatees show themselves along the boat slip. Gently churn the current. Touch faces softly. Nudge and guide the young. Adolescent manatees, the size of our dining table. Adults like smallish mottled gray-brown whales, snub wrinkled noses, round dark eyes under hoods of gray eyelids. Tails, lobed fans my arm's length across the stern, wave slowly. Propel these bayou giants to dare approach the boat slip, and 3 feet apart, share a silent gaze. Through a large part of my adult life, I've lived, worked, and traveled around the world. The next poems are from a residency in Kilkenny, Ireland. At St. Canice's Cathedral, Kilkenny, on the funerary covers, drapery shines black and beautiful. Centuries of parishioners have yielded to its tactile seduction and left a polished ghost of their passing caresses. Flesh and bones consumed by decades ticking on, century yielding to millennia, and none of these lords and their few ladies noticing at all. My hand trails the looping folds of medieval Irish limestone, polished perfect black, a shade thinner, more black now than before I came. And I too am a shade thinner, a microscopic layer of fingertips left on this lady's robe cloaks her eternity. Not mine yet. In Ireland, I saw many small houses in ruins, many abandoned in hard times or in the famine. Ghost along the tracks. Rough cut stones, ragged in roofless granite walls, piled up, heaped on what was once the floor. Where windows were, perfect rectangles of the mason's craft look in. The room, once low-roofed, dark and closed, now illuminated by refractive rolling mist. Every standing stone silvered in waves amidst the grasses, lupines, wild barley. Nourished by grounded clouds, the rosy blooming rowan ash reclaims its place. Before coming to Bainbridge, I lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico for about 35 years. But I think this next poem is pretty universal. Riverhead. Born in cloud, a rivulet runs down the top of the watershed, falls into its course, moves each pebble, each minima of silt, pushes topsoil and boulders captured in the dams of beavers and humans, tumbles again white and rapid over rocky flumes, murky as it spawns new oxbows, lethargically clears old floodplains. Every inch unreplicated, every moment past is past, gone. At the last, every royal dram joins the sea, born again to cloud. The Southwest is undergoing one of the worst years in a long time under this heat dome. The data in this poem are from the NOAA. And I've had to update this poem quite a few times. The picture on the cover here is the Cerro Grande fire, which was in Los Alamos. And I took the picture from 40 miles away from the deck of our house. Slow wind wallow, redux. June 2011, 538,000 acres of Arizona and New Mexico burning. June 2012, update. 289,000 acres of New Mexico burning. June 2021, update. 2,569,000 acres of California burning. June 2022, 899,000 acres of New Mexico burning. July 2022 update, 2,002,000 acres burning now. Burning up, burning down. Biologists cross the fire line. Corral electro-stunned Gila trout. Fish to spend summer vacation in northern New Mexico. Dark smoke clouds stutter by, snag on rocky crags, fall in the cooling night air. Smoke rains into our forest, our town, our skin. Smoky glare fills Sunday morning, murky air too heavy to drift away. Microbits of everywhere in our eyes, in our lungs, with us now and forever, until we also are microbits. Just one more about the environment. Inheritance. Ruddy sky burdens serrated city canyons. Street arroyos run with exhausted rivers. Over nearby sea, west wind wrenches up curls of oily particulate inheritance. Scorched primeval forests surge in the frenzied air. Plumes of mud-racked plankton, undeciphered ancient fauna, inchoate volatile haze of our past. Liquid dinosaurs, antediluvians, Homo habilis return. Now stratus clouds of forgotten faces. Before dusk, green sky, cold as lead. Sometime arrives. But now, while other people are suffering through a lot of hot air, we are very lucky here in the Northwest to be cool. But I would think about a cool time elsewhere as well. Forbearance is a sonnet to April inconstancy. Through this long, showery day, clouds scud in the wind, chase isobars of cold air across the roiling jet stream. Spring arrives in freezing sunshine, stutters, backslides, bows in on the back of cold April bluster, fleeting fertility lost. Frost traces each greening leaf, snug nestlings keep in sheltering aeries. Peony buds close back on themselves. Tomato blossoms explode in icy dismay. Riven with desire, all wait for another day. And this one is for Sylvia. Old enough. Being productive makes a person very busy. I was imagining idleness, but it turns out to be a daydream. We are going to be old pretty soon. We've been very busy, but pretty soon we will be old enough to dream. Kiss me now and make a plan to kiss me again pretty soon when we are old enough. The time is now. Black tea. Black tea in a mug. Over the rim, my sore heart's dearest friend smiles old love at me. He's over there. Politics of the body. My heart, a little left of center, contracts and pumps 500 times an hour. Tucked in behind a thin cage, tough lungs push and retreat 1,000 times an hour. All to send a bottle's worth of oxygen around the network, pass by the brain, brushing each molecule just enough for love, math, art, rage, despair, poems, hope. Just enough for one life, for 1 hour. Better living through chemistry. Held close. In the kindly embrace of close-held love, the touch of familiar affection fills my heart. Our faces suffuse with a blush of surprise in the pleasure of our company. And I think this is the last one. Iris, the courier of the gods, travels her rainbow to carry messages between earth and heaven. Physics of the iris. The body of one rages with joy against the surface of the other, struck by lightning, dazzled, dazed, in a sidereal cloud as apart as infrared and ultraviolet, as hydrogen and oxygen, the spectrum broken open, electric songs resounding in thundering air, in a delirium of molecules let loose, the critical mass achieved. Iris flying home with old news. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
I love how our readings have taken us, so many places, and I feel like we've come back down, come back around to kind of where Sharon started us, closer to the molecules and the cells. Oh, what a journey it's been. How lovely. I think unless anybody else has, decided that they want to read another one, Sylvia had offered, but she'd already said that she's tweaking now. I think that what I will do is sort of stop the recording so that we can chat a bit and talk about more poetry, but delightfully off the record. So thank you for a lovely reading.